yeah, papa. Don't know what to do. That's the name of the show, by the way. I don't know why. I have a sneaking suspicion that a non-zero amount of people might listen to this episode before any of the previous ones.
Okay.
If so, hello.
Hello.
Yeah. You're not going to listen to this. You're on it.
That's fair. Yeah. I have an instinctual sort of like, hey, I should say hello when somebody says hello, so I failed to suppress it. My apologies.
Yeah, you can't shake that off. Anyways, hello everyone. Welcome to Don't Know What to Do, your favorite Ranma One Half podcast, of which we all have multiple, but this one's your favorite now. I'm your host, Elena / Hedgie, depending on your level of familiarity with me. And joining me today, we have a guest, some guy.
That's me.
That's you.
Yeah,
Hey.
gotcha. I go by Slowbeef on the internet. Hi.
Yeah, some people might have heard of you, by which I mean maybe 90% of the people listening to this. Everyone else, to my usual viewers, might be some repetition here for the three of you, but that's okay. We're here to make friends. Anyways, for those uninitiated, this is a Ranma One Half podcast. It is not a rewatch podcast. It is not any of those nerd things. This is a serious discussion podcast. We're only here for actual science, for actual analysis, which is why I brought in the biggest anime expert I can think of.
Right. I can't think of anyone more than me who's into the anime.
Right. At one point, I was like, I need to expand. I need guests with a wider perspective. I need someone who really fits the tone of this podcast. And unfortunately, Lady Emily did not respond to my emails, so then I contacted you.
Yeah. Fair. I don't know if I'd call myself a close second, but I understand. Yeah. That's fair.
Yeah, understandable. But yeah.
So do they still call it Japanimation, or is that different now? Or
Of course, that's exclusively what we call it these days. There was a part in the middle where we started calling it other things, but the classics came back. You can't beat those.
I understand.
But yeah, so this is a podcast. It's about Ranma One Half, but it's also just about the consumption of media and the different things within Ranma. Research for this podcast has taught me that Ranma is a lot bigger than I thought initially. I keep running into things where I'm like, well, surely Ranma didn't invent that. And then it turns out it did.
I've had that experience with certain anime where it's almost like, wow, they're like kind of making a joke on this, and it's like, that's JoJo, like they invented that joke, and I'm like, whoa, really? Like, interesting, okay, but I had no idea, so
Yeah, except like at least now that the current series is out, maybe prior to that it wasn't the case, but now most people know what JoJo is. Now people know that it's influential. I don't see Ranma get brought up for a lot of the stuff it probably began.
Yeah, no, I hear that. That's why I listen to your podcast so many times, because I want to learn more about Ranma Half and the influence it had on,
Yeah, it's very important. The most important.
Right.
But yeah, so to pull back the curtain, I had plans when I asked you to guest here. I had an episode prepared to recommend to you. And before I could even do that, you already told me your first experience with Ranma, which just happened to be that exact episode.
Wait, are you serious? Like, by coincidence? That's so funny. I had no idea.
It was that exact one.
Oh my gosh. So, do you want me to tell the story on Discord or whatever? Or do you want to introduce?
Yeah,
okay.
I like to ask people their experiences with Ranma so that we know how much of an expert they are. So go ahead, expose yourself.
When Hedgie asked me about this, right, it brought back a memory of, and I somehow remembered the title of it. It was Desperately Seeking Shampoo, right? Or at least that was the name of the videotape it came on, because my like initial experience with anime, I think I was like 13 or 14, and it's like it's almost like a cliche, but my friend who actually streams is named Goblin, which is a funny story on its own, but like he brought over a VHS tape with Akira on it. And it was like labeled like it was like one of those white label VHSs like in the Ring where he wrote Akira on it, like handwritten. And it's like, you gotta see this cartoon. It's like, and I was like, oh my gosh, there's violence and like boobs in one part. Like, what the heck, you know? So like, what you would do then growing up is you'd go to Blockbuster, and you know, my mom would drive me, and then I'd go to the Japanimation section, right? And they had them in Tower Records too, but that was where like the hentai was, and it was really weird. But Blockbuster, like I didn't know what to get, so I would usually get stuff that's like video game adjacent, you know, like the Fatal Fury movie or like whatever, you know. And
Yeah.
but Nintendo Power talked about Ranma Half. It was a Super Nintendo game, I think, a fighting game maybe. I don't, you know, again, this is going back, so I could be getting that wrong. But I saw Ranma Half there, and I kind of remembered it. So I was like, okay, let me rent this, you know. And thankfully, I didn't watch it with my mom or anything. But you know, she was like in the next room or something. So there were parts of it I was like, oh boy, you know, because you know, it gets a little, it's not racy is not the right word, but, you know, it gets a little like, you know, hey, what's my son watching kind of thing. And I'm like 15 or whatever at the time, so it's not so great. But it's just still one of those things like we had like, you know, you don't have like an iPad. Like it's like a VHS, like a VCR you're going to be watching in like either like the living room when like everyone's asleep or whatever. But I decided to watch this when everyone was like awakened around the house and all that for a little bit. And, it definitely wasn't what I expected. You know, it left me with a very confused view of Ramna Half, where I didn't watch any more of it or learn anything about it. And when you asked me to be on the podcast, I'm like, oh my gosh, wait, I remember that one I brought, and then I brought up a scene in it, which I don't know if you want me to bring up now or when we get into it when we talk on the episode.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
Yeah, so it brought this one scene that I'm like, I hope I remember that right. Because if I remembered that wrong, it's really weird out of context. Like, hey, didn't this thing happen? And I was like typing that to you in Discord, really worried to be like, no, I don't know what you mean. I'm like, oh boy, this is awkward. You know. But thankfully I did remember it, because while I don't know very much about Ranma Half writ large, like some of the stuff I saw in Desperately Seeking Shampoo, I've like kind of never forgotten. And then some stuff I'm like, wait, I don't remember this happening. So, you know, some stuff I clearly have forgotten, but still, there were just certain things about it that watching it again, like unlocked. And, you know, especially when I think about the voice and the dubbing and all that fun stuff, you know, and all that. But there's that. So.
Yeah. And as apparently you were learning just now, that was the exact episode I was going to recommend to you if you had answered with, no, I've never watched that. But instead you told me, oh yeah, I do know that, and you told me a specific scene. I was like, all right, Desperately Seeking Shampoo. And you're like, yes, that one.
That's right. I didn't remember the name. That's right. And you mentioned the title. I'm like, that's it. I remember now. That's right. Yes. Because, like, I did know the joke, like, Desperately Seeking Susan, which is, like, I think that was, like, a movie, I think, around the same time. I kind of forget it. But, like, it was like when I was younger, like I understood that reference, which I don't know if anyone, like if that's lost now at the time. Like I don't know how popular Desperately Seeking Susan is, you know. I don't even know what it's about, but
I also don't know what it's about. I was in the same boat of like, I know that's the name of something.
I think it's a movie. Like maybe I'm confusing it with Breakfast at Tiffany's or something. Let me see.
I think it is a movie, yes.
Yeah.
But yes, that episode specifically. Also, here you talk just now. You didn't mention the video game part. Mm-hmm. That's also very funny because the reason I was going to recommend this, because I figured, you know, Slowbeef is an anime expert. He's watched so much. I can't guarantee that he's paid attention to some minor insignificant thing that I'm into. So on the off chance I was ready to be like, okay, I have one episode that you can watch, and I want you to go into this and picture you're like in your early teens, and this is your first exposure to it. Pretty much, I was like, hey, pretend that this, and it was the exact experience you described, because that is how most people in English speaking countries were introduced to Ranma. Either that or the video game that you just described. One of the two.
I feel like, I don't think I've played the video game. I feel like Nintendo Power described it. I did know it was about, like, something where there is a boy who would, like, fall into a lake or something and become a girl or switch gender, or I don't know, whatever. But, like, or become a different person. I didn't really understand exactly what was happening there. I mean, I do now, obviously, but, like, and I knew his father could become a panda if he fell in, but that was kind of it. And then there were, like, all other fighting game characters. And I remember the name Shampoo because, like, that's, like, a hard name to forget. But I didn't know anything about her or anything like that, you know? So it's, like, watching it again now, I feel like I had known, like, some of the names from the Nintendo Power article or whatever about it. But, like, I didn't have any context outside of the pond and whatever, you know, so...
Yeah, but yes, the video game was also a lot of people's exposure. There were 3 fighting games. They only localized the second one. It was called Hard Battle over here.
Okay, yeah, that sounds familiar.
But, like, it's really interesting because both of these pieces of media came out after the anime had ended in Japan.
Okay. Oh, I didn't know that.
Like, yeah, but, like, VHS tapes of stuff that came out after this one standalone episode and a Super Nintendo game, those are just easier to localize and bring over as opposed to a 160 episode anime series.
Right.
So that's why this was these were like 2 of the first things to get localized. It's actually very funny because the English voice actress for Girl Ranma got replaced within like 5 or 6 episodes. I don't know what happened there, but like she wasn't around for long. And this is like the one special where she's in it. So just so you know, yeah, they were in this early, and there's even some characters where you're like, oof, you can tell this is their first time doing these voices. The one that hit me was the dad, so not the panda dad, the other dad.
Right.
Because he eventually, he eventually gets into like the proper vocal twinge of like a disappointed dad. That you know that inflection, the one you speak with half the time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but in this OAV, he just sounds like some guy. He just sounds like some dude in his 20s. I'm like, that doesn't sound like a dad.
Right. It's, I mean, generally speaking, I mean, I think the issue is like Shampoo's VA like sticks out so much that it kind of like, I feel like I would have to watch it even a second time to kind of like totally grasp how everyone else sounded. But it was just like every time she came back, it was like, yeah, there's Shampoo again, you know? And yeah, I have feelings about that, but you know.
I briefly told you that's not the dub. That's just how she always is, including like the original manga version. That's how her dialogue is written, which is funny because then they started introducing other characters from China and they just spoke normal Japanese. So it's just Shampoo who talk like that.
Well, I guess I did a little research for this podcast, right? And she is like, it's not just that she's Chinese, but she's from like a tribe of women in China, right? Or is that okay? Because that's like I think they localized it as like Chinese Amazons, which is a little odd, you know. But
yeah, like, I also thought that was a weird way to localize it, but that's just like I don't know any other English term for like a tribe of warrior women. And it's not like they say it enough times that it's not like you could just say the full phrase. They need a word.
Right. Well, it's like one of those things, like, it should be wrong because, especially, like, we talk about Chinese Amazons, like, the Amazon is, like, actually a region of the world that is not China, certainly. Yeah. But, like, there were so many, like, B movies and things, I think, that made that same mistake where it's like, oh, Amazon, that means warrior women, and they, you know, wear, like, leopard bikinis and they're in the jungle. Sometimes they're missing half a breast because it makes them shoot arrows better, which apparently is totally false anyway, you know. I don't know why I said apparently, you know, whatever, but, like, some guy was like, well, boobs would get in the way of a bow. Come on, but that was whatever. I mean, seriously, right, everybody? And then a bunch of people agreed and whatever. And for some reason, it's in Strider for the arcade version for Capcom. Anyway, sorry, I digress. But yeah, so Shampoo, yeah, she has that cadence. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, she speaks in a way that is very, how do I put it, racist?
Mm-hmm.
Kind of, possibly. Like I said, it's always been that way. It's just like, this is the stereotypical Chinese speech. Like, this is the equivalent of, like, Speedy Gonzales.
Right.
Where, like, there's argument for, like, this isn't really racist. Like, that's just how people talk.
Mm-hmm.
I remember in the 90s, this exact sort of thing of, like, a lot of people from Latin American countries were like, no, Speedy Gonzales is awesome. He's cool. I relate to him. But also, there's some things there that you're like, when it's a bunch of white dudes animating this and doing this voice, it's got it's got something to it. And you get the same thing here, where, like, she is speaking with a stereotypical Chinese accent, where you're like, I guess if you were to get a Chinese immigrant, you would probably get some people who talk like that, but it's weird, especially since, like I said, later on, they introduce more Chinese characters, and they just speak fluent Japanese or English in the dub or whatever. Like, there's no accent whatsoever. It's just Shampoo. So it just makes it stand out even more.
And, like, well, the thing is that, she also, so is this part of it too, and she refers to herself in third person? Because that's, like, that's usually kind of like a shorthand for a particularly, like, unintelligent character in like, Western works anyway,
English,
right? Yeah.
In a lot of Western languages, yes.
Yeah.
But not so in a lot of Asian languages, which is why it gets weird when you localize it that way.
Yeah. And, I mean, they play her voice act, like, the voice actress kind of plays her, how do I put it, like, she kind of talks like this all the time, I kind of did a Ridley, I didn't mean to, but like that, like that weird, like, I wouldn't call it high pitched, but that, like, there's just a certain tone to it, and I don't know if it's me, but I don't particularly care for that. So it's like every time she came on screen, it was like, oh, Shampoo's here, you're doing noise, Slowbeef, watching this, and you're like, okay, all right, stop, jeez, oh, like, it just, I just couldn't, I didn't enjoy it, and it, unlike watching it again now, I was like, that's right, I this really went through me when I watched it when I was younger as well, and it made it a little hard to get through, but
so there you have it, folks. Ranma 1/2 inspired the Ridley voice.
That's true, actually. Yeah, you're right. Wow, I didn't even think we were gonna, like, break the news like this. Wow, but yeah.
But yeah, so this OAV, OVA, we'll get to that. There are multiple ways to refer to these. This came out in 1994, like a little under a year after the original anime had ended. It was the first of 12 little specials that they made. There were basically, like, little bonus episodes that were, like, slightly longer, but otherwise they were otherwise just normal episodes, but they were a special VHS exclusive thing. And like I said, when you've got a standalone VHS tape, that's a lot easier to localize. So that got brought over immediately. And shortly afterwards, they then localized the movie, the first Ranma 1/2 movie, and then they started the actual anime, starting with episode 1. So, like, it's kind of funny how, like, these voice actors, their first time voicing these characters is after the entire series at the very end, and then they record episode 1.
I see. Yeah. Right.
Which, and it's funny because, again, this is the era of VHS tapes. So it took them like 10 years to fully dub over and release the anime series.
Right.
So Ranma, not only, like, it was like the earliest, one of the earliest animes to get a big push in the US. Like, this was before Sailor Moon, before Dragon Ball, before any of those really reached English-speaking parts of the world. But Ranma was there, and it was there for quite some time. I remember watching, like, Pokemon VHS tapes in, like, 99, and it still had commercials for the Ranma 1/2 movie. Because, throughout the 90s, there was only so many things that these companies had to sell. It's not like now where, like, everything comes out, like, simultaneously. If a new anime comes out, it's on Netflix in, like, 8 different languages all on the same day. Whereas before, it's like, there's, like, maybe 8 or so shows that get translated that you could find if you go to your Blockbuster, and you'll only get, like, a couple tapes here, each one which has like 2, maybe 3 episodes in it.
Yep.
And that's just how you consumed these shows. So it took them a while to get through 161 episodes, plus the movies and the OAVs, which they had started and continued to translate alongside the anime. So it's a lot of content. Apparently, like, it was considered like, this is insane. Like, it's one thing to, like, syndicate it on TV, but, like, to just do it via VHS sales, that's insane. It's gonna fail, but eventually, in, like, the early 2000s, they finished. I think the last season is when they switched to DVDs, because those had finally started to become common enough that they could do that.
Right.
And even then, it was, like, 5 episodes per DVD instead of 2. So it was still pretty slow. It took us a while to get to, like, the in full season box sets.
Oh gosh, yeah. And like sometimes too, if you rented them, like the place you were renting from would some have like something like, we have volume 4 of Trigun. You're like, don't have to start with 1. Like, we don't have that, and you're like, all right, forget it then, or all right, I guess I'm just not gonna understand anything, but.
Yeah, and that's why so many of these shows were a lot more episodic than what we expect from most modern shows. 'Cause admittedly, it can be confusing to just dump you in here. This special certainly did not bother to introduce you to pretty much anything at all. But there's surprisingly little that you would need to know to catch up. If you just watch the first episode... That would tell you about most everything. The only thing it wouldn't tell you about is, like, there's a couple characters you might not recognize, but also most of those characters show up for, like, 1 or 2 scenes, just to be like, oh, by the way, here's what Ukyo's up to. And you're like, who the hell is Ukyo?
Well, that was the thing. I think that this is, like, they just throw you in the deep end, because it starts off and they give you a really quick summary, like, of just like, hey, I'm Ranma, and this is like who I am, and I fall in this thing, and you know what I mean? Like, it gives you like that like aspect of it, and then that's it, and then you're like in media res.
Well, because you found, actually, I'm really glad you found it. You found an archive.org upload of the actual VHS tape. Which included the previews. So I've seen that, what you describe, but I've only seen it as like isolated YouTube clips, because that was basically a trailer for the series. Like, you can go to the rental store and get the tape that has episodes 1 and 2 on it. Because the series is up, because they're also doing the series. It's not just this, it's not just the movie. Go and check that out. But, like, for the sake of Western audiences, we're going to put that ad here to also tell you this is what Ranma's about. And that's very convenient. I imagine the Japanese release probably did something similar, because, again, you could just go to a VHS store or whatever. I don't know what the Blockbuster equivalent would have been in Japan, but, like, you never know. Some kid might just be like, hey, that's like that Street Fighter clone my parents bought me. I'll watch that. And also get exposed to unexpected titties. And those people will also need a quick excuse to recap. Keep in mind, the original Ranma series was like 7 seasons. And like, a lot of people checked out after like seasons 2 or 3 because it's kind of repetitive. Again, it's very episodic. After a while, it's like, I've seen it said you kind of only really need to watch the first 2 seasons, and even then only like select episodes. And then from that point on, you can watch literally any episode in any order. It does not matter because you've been introduced to everything you need to know.
Yeah. Yeah. I could see it like kind of being some like sitcom-y in a way, or maybe sitcom is like the wrong way to put it, but that like sort of like just jump right in like format, like once you kind of know all the relationships and everything, you know.
Yeah,
it's just,
it is 100% that. It is sitcom-y. I've encountered people say that it's not sitcom-y. I have a whole episode about this in my podcast. You guys should check that out. But yeah, sitcom-y is the correct word, where it is just about, well, here are the characters, you know them. If you don't, well, they can all be described in like one sentence each, really. They're all pretty simple. Most of them, when they're introduced, I've described it as like they're introduced, they get their introductory arc, and then by the end of that arc, their status quo is established.
Right.
Like, this is what the character will reset to at the start of each episode they're in. And that's all you need to know. You don't need to know what happens in any other episode past this point, and you can watch them in any order, because who knows how you're going to encounter this.
Right.
The home video in general was just not really the expected experience for watching these types of shows.
Right. Right. And I mean, it's funny too, you say unexpected titties, because that intro, and this was like, again, like within like the first minute of Ranma half, you know, and again, I'm in my family living room, and thankfully no one's there, because like Ranma is describing getting into the pond, looking down to realize, you know, he's switched gender, or he's in a woman's body, or I'm not totally clear, but like he like just pulls open his like, I don't know what you call it, like one of those like student shirts. I can't think of the name, and just like
he's got like a trading gi, basically.
Yeah. Oh, that's it. That's right. I'm sorry. Yeah. And it's just like, whoa, I've got boobs, kind of thing. Like it's like, but it's like, oh boy, wait, we're going to nudity like immediately. Okay, hello, geez. I hope this could be embarrassing. So thankfully, Grandma wasn't in the room or anything like that, you know. But it could have been really traumatic for me, you know, as a young teenager having experience with anime. But
yeah, and as I said, that's kind of the most common experience for people who got it, who discovered Ranma in the 90s, which is why I was going to recommend that to you. Because if you hadn't experienced it yourself, I was like, this is the most likely way you would have discovered it if you had run into it. In fact, you probably have, and you didn't know about it. I said that I've seen commercials for Ranma in like Pokemon VHS tapes. I didn't realize it was Ranma until like 10 years later.
Right.
Where I was like, wait, that was a Ranma commercial? Huh, I didn't know that. I never actually saw Ranma at that point.
And it's weird to like call it like a little adult, because, you know, it's certainly not like R-rated, I'd say, or like, you know, like pornographic or anything like that. But it's like, I think it's because also in the 90s, you still had that like expectation of Western cartoons that it felt like very adult, you know, for
yes,
what it was.
you were still getting a lot of stuff advertised that way, which does end up being important for something I'm going to bring up in a bit. But yeah, that is the experience that is most common. So I'm glad you had that, and you even threw in a cameo for the video game there as well, because that's also common. And it's just being dumped in with no context is what was expected at the time. Like, it's not like nowadays where you could just binge the whole thing on Hulu, which I would not recommend. These old shows are not made for binging. You will burn out. But like, for context, they started translating the manga, and it was so early on. Like, manga was so uncommon that they still decided to like pack it into like 2 or 3 chapters in a small like Western comic book size thing.
Yeah.
So that it wouldn't feel weird. I'm sure some people old enough might remember when they would flip the images.
I was about to
so
bring that up.
Left to right.
Yeah.
And it's like, they did that, but they didn't just do that. They also just cut down to, like, make the booklets the same size as if you went to buy a copy of X-Men or whatever. They, like, you're going to the comic book store to read comics. To a lot of these people, if they see, like, a regular book-size thing, they're gonna be like, what the hell is this? I'm not gonna read a book. I came here for comics.
Right.
Like, that's how early on it was introduced to a lot of American audiences, and they just kind of stopped after a while. So, like, throughout the late 90s, just people had to do their own fan translations. It was kind of fun, because I read those fan translations, and I'm like, well, some of these, like, notes from the translators are from like 98, 99, and that's just been what's been passed around for a long time until 2014, which is when Viz reprinted the manga, and that's when they finally decided to fully translate it into English. Prior to that, there was no full English translation.
You call it? It's wild. Yeah, I remember like too, like with translator notes and all that. It's like, and like sometimes they would just like insert their own little thing, like, I'm doing great today, by the way, you know, and it's just like, oh, well, thanks for that, translator, you know.
Yeah, it's the same feeling as like reading old like game facts guides for Super Nintendo games.
Yep.
That
absolutely.
Exact feeling of just like, here's the other stuff.
Exactly. While we're here, I want to thank God for helping me complete my game facts of Phalanx, the shoot 'em up, you know, for like, okay, well, I'm sure he appreciates it. Ryu Ninja 2019, but you know.
So yeah, that's the experience. I'm glad you got to have it.
Mm-hmm.
Other things of note before, like the actual episode doesn't matter. I'm going to go over it a bit just to get your thoughts on it, just to give people a recap of what happens. Because, like I said, most people, this is probably one of the most watched Ranma things, simply because of its availability throughout the 90s. But I feel like before that, it's important to get more context, because it's really easy to just be like, oh yeah, VHS tapes, I remember those. And then be like, yeah, but how much do you remember? Because it's a bit more, there's more to it than just, oh, we used to use these before we had DVDs.
Right.
It's a bit more. Right down to the discrepancy of what I mentioned before, where some people call them OAVs, some people call them OVAs. I myself keep alternating between the two throughout this podcast, because that's just, it's hard to settle. Nowadays, people almost exclusively use OVA to describe this type of media. That was not the case in the 90s.
Right.
In fact, the official VHS tapes would say OAV instead of OVA. But also, the term kind of has lost meaning at this point, because what even is an OVA? It's unclear what it means nowadays. In fact, even on like the like Wikipedia listing for the OAVs, they list like an extra episode that got released in like 2011 as part of like an anniversary thing, and it was included in like a special bonus DVD or something. It's like, I guess that technically counts, but like in the spirit of what these used to be, also not. It's unclear. There's also a bunch of other stuff that was exclusive to VHS tapes that apparently don't count, according to fans and wikis. So what the hell do these terms even mean? So to get to that, I feel like you have to really, really think about the history of the medium. And just remember that, like, yeah, prior to, like, the mid-'80s, home video was not the norm or the expected. Like, they've technically been around since, like, the mid to late 70s, but it wasn't until the 80s where, like, everyone had a VHS tape. And you could release something on tape and expect a large enough audience to actually buy it. That's when the boom happened, which is why we started getting a lot of things on VHS tape. And in Japan, that's where we started getting the OAVs, which could stand for either original video animation or original animation video. Those two things sound interchangeable, but I think it's interesting when you realize, well, one of those, it's an original video animation. Here's just a little bonus animation. And that's how the term is kind of used today, because there's so little like physical releases of stuff. But you might still get like, here's a bonus episode on the Blu-ray disc, or here's something we uploaded online. Here's just a little thing that's like, it's an OAV. It's an original animation that's not part of the main series. That's what the term has kind of become. But the alternative is original animation video. The video part was what's important. This is a tape. This is a physical thing that you buy in the stores. You're not watching it on TV. You're not buying a ticket to the movies. This is a home video thing. And knowing how less common home video used to be is important, because now that things can be released directly to stores, we don't have to worry about television syndication rules or censorship or any regulations for what theaters would want, which of course means you can put as much nudity and gore in it as possible. and that's why so many of the most popular early OAVs were either extremely hyper-violent or had a bunch of nudity in it, if not like outright porn scenes. This is how you get your Devilmans, your Vampire Hunter D's, your Creamy Lemons.
By the way, I do have, you reminded me of a very quick embarrassing story, which is I did watch Vampire Hunter D, and my mom came in at one point. And it was toward the end where he's like kind of embracing the girl. And I haven't seen it in years. I don't really remember any of their names. But like as he leaves her, like the front of her dress is just like completely open and she's pretty much naked. My mom went like, I just think I remember her going like, oh, like that kind of voice of like, I didn't expect that. And I'm like, I don't know, Ma, I rented it. It was weird. But anyway. Sorry.
Yeah. Like you almost had that experience with Ranma. But, like, you could have picked anything from that shelf, and it probably would have been a similar experience.
Oh, yeah,
because not only were those just more common in general for VHS releases, but especially when it came time to, like, choosing what things are we going to localize, because it's so damn expensive. You can only put, like, 2 episodes on one tape, and it's so expensive just to produce these and translate them and everything that it was easier to pick the things that were more different. And that's why a lot of those early releases in English had that whole thing of like, these aren't your ordinary cartoons.
Right.
This is Japanimation. They do things differently over there. And it's, you know, why so many people's first exposure to anime at that time was like hyper-violent or hypersexual or both. And that just kind of became almost expected before more and more anime started to get released. It was either that or you were a kid in the late 90s watching like Sailor Moon or Dragon Ball, and that was it. You know, Pokemon. That was a lot of people's first exposure to anime. If you're either a child or an adult watching softcore stuff, or a child watching softcore stuff and looking over their shoulder to make sure mom's not watching. One of those.
Yeah, I learned that trick. Thanks for that, Vampire Hunter D. But yeah, gosh.
So yeah, the like the concept of it being a videotape that like you don't have to worry, you don't have to, you know, deal with whatever regulations a channel might have. It could be anything. The only barrier of entry is a person's ability to walk into a store and buy a VHS tape or rent it. Who knows? and you can see that. You can see that. So by 1994, you were seeing less of this because the novelty had kind of started to wear off, but you could still see it because this episode has I wouldn't say more nudity, because there's pretty much only like one scene in it with like full on nudity. But like the density of that nudity, the amount of extremities is more than usual. I've talked before about, like, you could kind of tell a lot about the mindset of who's working on this scene based off the amount of detail in the nipples. Because sometimes you'll be reading a manga page and they're just dots. They're just little cartoon dots. You're not meant to think about it. It's like, oh, Rama's naked, whatever.
Right.
Sometimes there'll be a little bit more of a bump, just a little bit of an outline of a nipple. And then you get to this special where, like, these are the most detailed nipples imaginable
It's like
on shampoo.
It's like a medical textbook, right? Like that kind of just like, all right, now here's here's everything you need to know.
Yes, this is the most clearly defined nipple usage in the series, and on top of that, most of the time there's nudity. It's with Ranma. Ranma is like, well, we're meant to be like, well, that's actually a boy. He just turns into a girl, but also he's just very unfeminine and unflattering when he's naked. I've said it before. Naked people are just funny. Mm-hmm, sure. Sometimes it's just in that context. We're not really meant to be titillated by naked Ranma as much. And it's very rarely that the other female characters get sexualized the same way. In fact, I think the first episode is the only time where we see Akane naked. Well, we see her naked a lot, but she's always covered up. I think the first episode's the only one where we can see the nondescript nipples on her, as opposed to just Ranma, which is, again, it's the first episode. This is the first OAV. They want to entice you. They want to get you in there and be like, whoa, there's boobs in this.
Right.
And then the rest of the series is just typical cartoon nudity where they're always, like, they're naked, but they got the towel in front of them. You don't really see anything, but to a young teenager, that's enough. And they got your attention in the first episode. That's all they need to do.
I feel like that was kind of a big ethos too, and like the PC-98 it reminds me of, except that became an arms race, of like, okay,
yes.
how much farther can we push it? But like it is that notion of like, we got to get him in the door. Like let's shake these anime boobs at him and hope for the best, that kind of thing. But
how many jiggling boobs can we have in the first 30 minutes of Police Knots?
Oh, geez. Well, that's, Hideo Kojima had his own kind of things going on there, too. But yeah, you're absolutely right. It was like, oh man, like just put it all in. I made you money off this Metal Gear stuff. Okay. Now you let me do what I want. All right. So,
Yeah. And it's with everything. Even like the hyper violent stuff will often start with one of the goriest scenes or something very over the top. It's just easier to front load whatever thing you want to catch the audience's attention. And yeah, I believe this is the only thing of Rama Media to show actual like nipples on shampoo. Cause again, it's usually just Ranma and they're often just little dots or just like circles with no real definition. But here you do get the detail. They want to let you know those are nipples. And you get to see the exact shape and outline and color, all the texture to it. This is the most detailed. So you know exactly what they were going for and what kind of audience they were hoping to draw. Which is, again, why I recommended it. Because you were the audience, Slowbeef. You were the exact person they wanted. You selected that VHS tape for the exact reasons they were hoping. And you watched it for the exact reasons.
Oh my gosh. The revelations on this podcast.
You were the anime fans all along. This is which is no surprise because you are the anime expert. But still.
Right. Still. Gosh, it's an honor.
So yeah, that's kind of what gets you into this storyline, which at the end of the day is just kind of a random sitcom episode nonsense. Like nothing in this episode is important. Mm-hmm. Again, you could pick any of these episodes in order. This just happened to be the first one they chose to do for an OAV. And if they picked something else, they would have found ways to sneak nudity into that one. But this is the one that got the most eyes on it.
Well, that's the thing. And it's one of those things like you don't realize you don't need the context because it's so different from what you're used to. Because like even silly stuff where it's kind of like, well, why is she named Shampoo? Is that important? And I don't think it is, right? But it's like, it's there. And when you're watching it, you're like, I don't get that. Or like Ranma, seems to have like more than one fiance, and it's sort of like, am I getting that right? Like, how could that be? And all that stuff. But then we could, but like, yeah, at the end of the day, it seems like, yeah, this feels sitcom-y in that like we're returned to the state that we were in when everything started. Like nothing progressed, but it wasn't supposed to, that kind of
deal. with zero context, you do get that weirdness of like, wait, why does Ranma have like 3 fiancés? But like, once you learn the context is just 3 different girls became his fiancés. That's just how it works. It's like, it's like the sitcom trope of 2 characters accidentally getting married or whatever. Just the typical silly nonsense that could happen in this goofy world.
It's kind of like a mashup in a way of that sitcom trope and the one where like somebody has 2 dinners scheduled at the same time, so they have to like keep switching tables, and like pretend they're like attending to both events at once.
Gotta take 2 different girls to the prom. How are you gonna do this, Fonz?
Exactly. And
except here, like, it is funny that Ranma doesn't seem to want. This is a fun story because typically Ranma doesn't care for any of these fiancés. He very obviously has a crush on Akane, the main love interest, but this is the what the experts like you would call the tsundere personality, where neither he nor Akane will admit their feelings towards each other. But then we get these other girls, and Ranma tends to not really like the attention he gets from all these girls pining over him. But the basic plot of this episode is, well, what happens when one of those girls doesn't show interest in Ranma?
Right. And he proves that adage in this case. It's like, you always want what you can't have, that kind of thing. Because it seems like, even like you can draw the context of like from it that it seems like he typically like doesn't care about shampoo or doesn't like shampoo or something. But then when she like and she's like into him, but then when she starts to rebuff him, it's like you kind of get that reversal. Like you get the idea behind it, even if you don't totally understand why it's happening or what their previous relationship was like. Yeah,
and you don't need to know that because the first like 5 minutes is just showing you what your average day-to-day encounter between these 3 characters is like. It's just Ranma and Shampoo are going to school. They bump into Shampoo. She's jumping on Ranma, trying to kiss him, do stuff. Akane's upset. Ranma's just like, whatever. And then they leave, I guess, because Shampoo's got work.
Right.
and then we get to the main plot of this story. So, you mentioned before, Desperately Seeking Shampoo is the name of the tape.
Yeah.
Which featured 2 episodes. But one of those episodes is this one that's about Shampoo. The actual title is a lot more literal. It's the something of the reverse jewel or whatever.
Right.
Typical overly descriptive anime titles. Basically, Shampoo's grandma, who, again, if you have no context who these people are, here's just an old Chinese woman. She's got all kinds of jewelry. She's like, I got plenty. You can go ahead and take one. They're from when I was your age. And Shampoo picks one, and it turns out to be some kind of magic Amazon cursed artifact. Because I guess Cologne just has those lying around. Right. And you're just like, she's an old martial arts woman. She's probably got some weird stuff lying around. You don't need that context.
Right. Sure, I could see it.
So Shampoo accidentally picks this magic brooch that basically inverts your feelings. So Shampoo's feelings of love towards Ranma get inverted, and now she hates him. She hates his guts. She doesn't want to see him. If she does see him, she wants to punch him so hard she can't stand his guts. And that's basically the entire plot of the episode, is Ranma dealing with the fact that this girl who was previously all over him is now playing hard to get and saying that she hates him, and he can't stand that. Which does lead to the scene you mentioned that let me know, oh yeah, you've seen it.
Yeah, because exactly. It's that whole like, oh wait a minute, now that she hates me, I love her. I think Seinfeld actually directly did that in a way, like where they even just explicitly said like, she hates me so much that I think I love her, that kind of thing. But like, it's funny. It's interesting here, and it's interesting because again, I knew the premise from the intro, and I think from the Super Nintendo about like the transformational pond or whatever, but it doesn't seem to like play into this or figure into this episode from what I remember.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it's like the least important part of it. Like, it happens at the beginning when like Shampoo jumps on Ranma's bike and then he like falls into the pond and the father is like nearby and it splashes on him and he becomes a panda and Ranma becomes a girl. But then like I think that's kind of it, right? Like, I don't remember it happening again.
With the exception of a guy later on turning into a duck.
That's right. Yeah.
Which might also confuse you if you have no context. But again, like, you got the preview for the first episode just telling you, there's magical springs that transform you. I guess there's other stuff. Sure, This old lady has a magic Amazon brooch that changes your emotions. Sure, this guy can turn into a duck. You're not really questioning it. Because this episode certainly doesn't expect you to know it. And yeah, the transformations don't really matter. Most episodes, they don't really matter. It's just a thing Ranma can do and other characters. It's just a thing. Ranma could just be a girl sometimes. It's surprisingly not that important.
Right.
It's often just like a 1-second gag at the start of an episode and that to remind the audiences, and that's about it.
Well, I think it's a good reminder in society that gender is a social construct because it's the hook of the show, but who cares, So, boom.
Yeah, perfect.
It's very good that Ranma half was so forward thinking.
Exactly. That was the intention. I joke, but the artist Rumiko Takahashi, she doesn't seem like she intended anything, but like this is a common thing in almost all of her works, and she's still making manga to this day. Huh. So at a certain point, you're just like, well, it may not be intentional, but she's at least subconsciously woke. It comes up frequently enough that I'm like, I got all these nickels for each time this really specific thing happened in her works. I'm gonna take note of that. But yeah, so this special is, it's playing with an existing relationship, but also you don't really need to know that relationship because again, it was summed up in like the first 5 minutes and that's everything you need to know. And now you immediately understand, okay, so Shampoo likes Ranma and he usually rebuffs her, but as soon as she rebuffs him, suddenly he's like, I'll show her. Mm-hmm. Oh, reject me? Well, yeah, now he wants to impress her and get her attention, which leads to like half the episode just being comical shenanigans. He's basically Wile E. Coyote pulling out the different Acme tricks, trying to win her over, and they all backfire.
Right.
And like I said, that does include the scene that you mentioned, the one that you were worried would be a problem if you misremembered it. Because that's another one where, like, there's no nudity, there's no nothing, but you maybe don't want mom to walk in on that scene either.
Yeah. Should I talk about the scene, or?
Yeah, go ahead.
Right. So, I'll tell you what I remembered it, and then I'll tell you rewatching it, rewatching it now, because, like, what I remembered was they get into a fight, Ranma and Shampoo, like a physical fight. And now I know that, like, he's trying to impress her with martial arts and stuff, because she's into that. But I remembered that they get into a fight and Ranma wins more or less. And then like Shampoo was kind of like, all right, fine. Like you can have your way with me. Rewatching it, she actually says like, or in the dub, like you can take my body, but you can't have my heart or something. But
yeah.
And I remember then like a bunch of people onlookers saying like, whoa, look at that. Like Ranma's trying to have his way with Shampoo. And Ranma's like, no, that's not what's happening. And then runs off all embarrassed. And now, contextually, if you can imagine, you're on a Discord call, someone asks you to be on the Ranma Half podcast, and you're like, oh, wait, I remember this episode. And I'm like, oh, yeah, wasn't there a scene where that happened? And then once I hit enter on that, I'm like, if I got that wrong, or like misremembered that's gonna be so awkward to just pull that out of the air, Like, oh
Yeah,
yeah.
oh right, you're talking about the show where the guy tried to have his way with a girl on the streets,
Right.
and then the classmates were like, "What the hell is that guy doing?" And
Yeah.
that is the thing that I most remember from that show. Of
Yeah.
course.
Exactly. But like, yeah, exactly. That's my go-to, right? Like, I remember nothing else or any of the characters, but I remember this almost non-consensual fighting scene or whatever. And yeah. But Ranma at least like is just like, I gotta get out of here. This is weird, so unfortunately it did happen. So,
Yeah,
Whew.
yeah. I like the dub version of that because the people they got to voice the onlookers are like, oh my god, did you see Ranma do that? Whoa, 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 whoa. Like, they sound so ridiculous and cartoony. Like, I can't believe Ranma would do that to Shampoo. What? Like, who
Right.
the hell are these people? I don't know,
Well,
but like...
that's the thing too. Then I'm like, are they like popular at school or wherever? Right? That like people are just like, holy crap, look at the local celebrities and like their weird like almost sex fight. Like, what is happening here? But like, because the scene itself is also not explicit, but like he's like kind of like got her pinned on the wall before that happens, which I'd forgotten about. And then you're watching that again. I'm like, oh yeah, okay, that is a little more than I remembered. But yeah.
Yeah, and like she's like clutching her chest defensively, like she's making like she
Yeah.
looks like someone who is currently being violated,
Yeah.
which is again it's part of the act. It's part of like Ranma looking at being like, oh, this is not a good look. I need to get out of
Yeah.
here.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
that plot doesn't work. And it's like the third or fourth step of like I don't even remember where he gets the scroll from. Does he even get it from anywhere? He just has,
Right.
like, he's just reading pickup tips that he just found, I guess.
That's right. Yeah, because then he's like, "All right, I'm gonna learn how to meet women," and then he has like the like how to get laid scroll basically that teaches it has all the advice for how to meet girls and stuff. And oh boy, yeah. And then it becomes Ranma learns how to be a Romeo, except not really, but
Yeah, they all fail. Like, it's stuff like make her jealous. So he drags Akane like, hey, let's go out after school. And she's all, oh, sure. And then they go see Shampoo, and he's just grabbing Akane like, hey, check it out. And she just goes, like, ignores him. He's like, ah, damn. and Akane does not like that.
no, right.
And pretty much again, it's the Wile E. Coyote thing of everything Rama tries results in him being hurt in some way, in the same way that like an Acme rocket explodes, which of course leads to like the last one where he's on crutches and he's like, step 4, rely on her natural instincts to nurture, let her know you need her, and then she just runs over him with the bike, and just nothing is working. Unfortunately, I think this is also where we get the shower scene.
Yeah.
Where because early on he goes to Shampoo. He's like, "What the hell is going on? Did I make you mad? Is there something you're doing? What is this?" And because it turns out the shower scene is important because she's in the shower. She's naked. That means she's not wearing the brooch. So this is the one time where she acts like her usual self. And Rama's like, oh, okay. And he seems like he's pleased. It was all an act. But of course, her grandma's there to make sure that, like, no, this is working in Shampoo's favor. I need to put the brooch back on. So, once again, backfires. Ranma just keeps getting injured. And eventually, the grandma does show up with her ultimate plan because she wants Shampoo to marry Ranma. She wants Ranma to choose her granddaughter and join her family, and sees this as an opportunity to be like, listen, I think her exact phrasing is, by losing, you win. All you have to do is just admit that you love her, and she'll stop playing hard to get. That'll be fine. You know, you just gotta say it. Just say it. It's not gonna be a big deal. And then secretly, she's planning to have like 50 witnesses to hear the whole thing, so that if Ranma tries to back out, he's gonna look like an asshole.
Right. What maybe because I don't understand the Ranma context enough, but like, what is Ranma's like plan? Like, I'm assuming it's like a series of unfortunate accidents that he has like multiple fiancées, but
Yeah, most
like,
of them are just separate stories. Like, they have nothing to do with each other. He just has bad luck.
But they're all like hanging on to see, like, I hope I end up with Ranma ultimately, or like, let's just see where this goes, and if I end up with Ranma.
Yeah.
Or not.
Yeah, none of them want to give up for their own reasons. In Shampoo's case, they even mention it in this episode. The only reason she wanted him in the first place is because of Amazon law, because Ranma defeated her in combat, and now she must marry him.
Right.
Which is what leads to the scene where he pins her to the wall. Like, no, you don't have a choice. You have to marry me. And then that's when everyone's like, oh my god, what's Ranma doing?
Right.
But yeah, I guess it's fortunate that Shampoo is into that normally when she's not wearing the brooch. Like, yo, this guy can kick my ass. And I'm really strong. So if he can beat me, he must be insane. He must be crazy. I'm totally head over heels for this guy. And that's why she wants to marry him. But as this episode demonstrates, even if she didn't want to marry him, she would be bound by Amazon law to pursue him and make him marry her, basically. Which is her sort of deal. She is a proud warrior. She cannot accept no for an answer. And that's why she's still around. Her and her grandma just opened up a restaurant to make ends meet while they wait for Ranma to come around, I guess. And every once in a while, you'll get a little sitcom-y episode where one of the two will come up with a crazy scheme to win over Ranma. In this case, it's mostly the grandma. Shampoo doesn't seem to be aware of what's happening most of the time until the very end, when it's revealed to her, like, oh, this brooch is making you hate him. And it's like, oh, right, I forgot. She just takes it off. And suddenly Shampoo is on board with this plan that she hated 5 seconds ago. Of like, yeah, we'll basically trick him into confessing his love to you and use the power of social pressure to make him commit to that. Which does lead to, well, I think one of my favorite jokes. I love when jokes like this happen, where like, I guess they needed to pad for time for this to fill out the whole like 35 minutes, because this is longer than your usual episode, but we get like 3 fake outs in a row of like, we get to the confession, but it turns out this is what another character is imagining it to be like. Like, first, Akane is imagining it, and like, yeah, they live happily ever after. She wakes up like, oh no, whatever. And then we get Ranma's version, and and we see just Shampoo looking so annoyed, just very impatiently tapping her leg as she's waiting for Ranma. He's like, oh man, I have no idea what to say. And then just cut to the people hiding underneath the chairs, being like, why hasn't Ranma said anything in the past like 50 minutes?
Well, yeah, and it's funny too, because like, I think it's like one of those things that I feel like if I knew more about Ranma and I was more invested, I would like be like, I would find these scenes like really like suspenseful and like, oh my gosh, like this is really it. I've been waiting for this for like 8 seasons or something, or not really that, you know what I mean? But like, but here again, like watching this as your first Ranma experience, it's like, I don't understand, like, why do they even like him? He seems like he kind of sucks, but like, but they all love him.
He's kind of suck in this episode.
Yeah, he's just sort of like there and stupid and stuff. And then like they just throw Ukyo at you, where it's like, oh, there's a third fiance, and you're like, there's a third fiance? Like, wait, what? Like, I was getting used to the fact that there is more than one fiance. Like, but
yeah, that's another form of padding, because she wasn't in the original manga storyline, but they're like, just give her a scene. Why not? We gotta meet 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Just have a scene of her reaction, because Ranma needs a gimme. He needs to, like, flirt with a girl and have it actually work. And that doesn't go anywhere. Again, she's there for, like, one scene.
Right.
Also, with no context, you might be like, why is she dressed differently from everyone else? That's not the school uniform. But also, Ranma isn't wearing a school uniform. But also Ukyo's wearing a boy's uniform. What's up with that? Is she also woke? Is she also from a spring? That guy can turn into a duck. Who else can transform? I don't know. A lot of stuff just kind of thrown at you in there. They have some other romantic interest for Akane show up at the end. Like, I can't believe that Ranma is betraying Akane like this.
Yeah.
She's gonna be all mine. And you don't know who they are either. If this is your first exposure.
That made no sense. There's just like a gang of people who beat the crap out of Ranma, and not to spoil the ending, but that's like how it kind of ends. It's like Ranma got his ass kicked. And it's like, oh, that's how it, all right, well, wampa wampa wom, you know, like, see you next time for Ranma. Like, wow, all right.
Yeah, it is pretty much how it ends. The only other thing of note is that, like, yeah, you didn't mention, like, I don't think anyone is like, is this the episode where they finally confess to each other? Like, maybe if you're a kid, every episode is super suspenseful in that way. Maybe Ranma 1/2 is also not the most appropriate show to be watching, but, like, I'm sure some people were invested, but in the same way of, like, it's a sitcom. Like, how invested were people in, like, Chandler and Monica's relationship on Friends? Like,
right.
Sure, it's a big deal, and, like, oh, in this season they're getting married, but, like, you're not at the edge of your seat most of the time. Yeah. A lot of the time it's just silly, goofy sitcom nonsense.
Right. And, yeah. It's so it's hard to know, too, I guess, like, here, like, exactly how, because, like, this is not part of the main series, right? It's like a side so it's right, or so it's kind of like, well, yeah.
It's I mean, it's all part of the manga. The anime finished, but the manga was still going, so they continued to be like, well, we're not going to make a full season, but we'll animate like a couple of standalone episodes and release them on VHS.
Yeah.
Just over the years.
Right. So, like, that, yeah. Just, like, because it's, like, that's, exactly, I think you're saying this before, too. It's, like, the kind of thing where you would never expect, like, okay, this is where we're going to get some resolution here. You know what I mean? Like, I'm finally going to know, like, this thing, you know? It's just, like, you fully expect that, but they play it up, like, these, like, flashback, or these, like, imaginary scenes to be, like, I guess to try to, like, trick you to, like, oh, wait, we're showing you, this is who he's gonna end up with, this is gonna be the end of the series, this is everything, you know, but then it's like, well, no, because it ended before anyway, so, you know, but.
Yeah. It happens, like, 3 times in a row, so it does get a bit repetitive. But yeah, they want to pad it out. They want to be suspenseful. The only other thing of note is Moose is a bit prominent here. He's the duck guy. Did you ever get any context for him?
No.
Nah? Okay. Nope. That's good. He's just the guy that turns into a duck, basically. As far as you know, that's it.
Oh. All right. Because that's all I really got from him, right? And it's just sort of like, okay, there's a... And then I'm like, wait, because at one point, too, I was like, this isn't, like, a different duck that wears glasses or something, right? But it's like, no, of course not. It's this guy. But, like, it's so weird. It's just one of those things, like, I didn't know what to make of it because they didn't really go anywhere with that part of it. And, you know, I don't know. It was there. Ranma, it's a very confusing, like, episode, to be honest. Like,
yeah. And I wanted you to have that confusion. If you hadn't experienced it yet, I would have forced it onto you because it is integral to being a Ranma viewer of our age group. This is the only way we could have experienced Ranma in the 90s.
Right. Because when I rewatched it this time, I started to Google stuff, and then I asked you because I'm like, well, yeah, I don't want to, like, spoil myself for the podcast or not have the, you know what I mean, proper context. But, like, there's, like, 1 or 2 things that where I'm like, oh, I see. Okay, so he does have 3 fiancés. Right, okay. You know, it's like that kind of thing. And then, yeah, so it's like, you don't have that back then, so you're just stuck. It's just sort of like, you'll never know what Moose's deal is, or, you know, or what's going on with Ranma. Like, this is it for you until you go, yeah.
He turns into a duck, and he likes shampoo, and I guess he lives with her? That's never really fully explained. He seems to be in her house. He's from China. I don't know where else he'd be staying. Yeah. If not in her family's house. He's just here, And because he loves Shampoo, but she clearly doesn't love him because she loves Ranma. This is part of the nonsense. But because he's against this, he tries to warn Ranma, but Ranma's already left, so he tells Akane, but then the grandma locks the two of them up, and we get the big thing where they escape, but Akane's like, yeah, whatever, Ranma can do his thing. I'm a tsundere, as the experts call me.
Right, of course.
And Moose's response is to put the brooch on her, to invert her feelings. So now Akane is filled with overwhelming emotions of love and affection, the opposite of what she was displaying, and the whole thing, again, the joke of like, why isn't Ranma saying anything? Which, I'll admit, if you're invited to a surprise party and they make you hide, I think, how long would it take you to be like, man, screw this, I'm just stepping out? What, like, how much longer do you want me to sit under this chair? 50 minutes seems a little excessive.
What's the term for the opposite of tsundere? I think it's something like arid nuts or something like that. I don't know, but that's I think what happens, right? Yeah.
Yes, arid nuts. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not really sure what the opposite of a tsundere would be. What is it? Just like someone who's very nice to you? I'm not sure, because a tsundere is a very specific thing.
Well, so Undertale helped me a lot with this, where it's like they kind of secretly want you to get close to them, but they don't want to act like it almost, or they're too afraid of like you getting too close or what have you, so they kind of keep you at arm's length, you know? I'm thinking of the plane. That's so kind of
tsundere.
Yeah. Well, there was like tsundere plane in Undertale, which is why I remember there.
Yeah, and the cactus, of course. Ranma also famously inspired Undertale.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, the whole moment is ruined when Akane shows up. She confesses her love to Ranma, which of course, Shampoo is not happy to see Akane here, and then she confesses her love. Thus, the whole jig is up now. And Ranma's like, hell yeah, I'm coming out on top. But then they remove the brooch. Akane beats him up. Then these two guys you don't know show up and beat him up some more. And then literally the last shot is basically Ranma in a full body cast. Just being like, hell yeah, I still got it. Or, sorry, hell yeah, I still got it.
Right. But it's weird because he got beaten mercilessly, you know? Like, so much he's in a body cast. And I get it's comedy, but it's like, wow,
It's just as Grandma Cologne says, by losing, you win.
Yeah.
The ultimate wisdom of that episode. But yeah, it had that episode. Minor note, I'm very glad you found that upload of the VHS tape, because I've been looking for stuff like those. I found uploads like DVD rips, but I'm like, no, I want to see the VHS tapes. I want to see like the ads at the start. I want to know how it was presented, because I know eventually they made an English dub of the intro theme for these, but it wasn't in this VHS tape. They just had the lyrics, the English lyrics that they would eventually translate it to, but it still played the Japanese audio. So I'm like, oh, I guess they didn't have that done yet. And that's just a fun little thing to know. And yeah, and also the upload you found was incomplete because it cuts off midway through the second episode on the tape. Which wasn't important, but I even mentioned, like, who knows? If you were to look at it, there might be something that refreshes your memory. If you saw this VHS tape, who knows? You probably saw it, even if you remember none of it.
I guess I must have, right? But like, it's funny because, you know, again in the rewatch, I feel like I was like, I don't feel like I watched the second thing, or I don't remember it at all. Like the Christmas episode or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or it was like a special kind of thing, right? Like
yeah, I mean they're all specials because the anime's over. So here's a special on tape, but then they put out like 12 of those. But here's it's a Christmas episode, which incidentally so the older sister character Kasumi, she In that episode, we get a scene of her like having a dream, and she's in her nightgown, and it's a very low cut nightgown with all the cleavage exposed, and she does not wear that anywhere else in the series. So once again, that VHS tape magic of we gotta get you enticed in the first 5 minutes.
Right.
We need to let you know, even if this isn't technically accurate to the rest of the show, she never wears anything that revealing. But for this one scene, hell, I'm pretty sure there are scenes where we see her usual pajamas and it's not this low-cut nightgown. But for this episode, that's what she's wearing.
It's like,
and
yeah, like fan service for potential fans. You know what I mean? Like, we
yes.
hope you watch our show, and if you do, maybe there's more stuff like this. Maybe there isn't, you know, but please buy more Ranma hats.
By the time you find out, you will have already given us money, so it's not like it matters.
Exactly.
Right. But yeah, it is also a very funny second special, and especially funny that like this first pair of OAVs was the first thing to get localized, because that Christmas episode is full of fan service. The entire plot is Kasumi, the sister, has a dream where Santa Claus basically tells her, you need to throw the biggest Christmas party ever, you gotta do it. And she's like, yeah, I will, Santa. And that's the entire episode, is just, we're throwing a Christmas party and everyone's invited. And most of the episode is just the various characters. You got the fiancés fighting each other over who gets to spend Christmas with Ranma. But most importantly, pretty much every character in the series gets a cameo. They have these crowd shots of literally everyone, including characters that Kasumi has never met, so I don't know how she invited them, but literally everyone is here. There's like shots of like 100 characters over the course of this episode, and you don't know who any of them are. You're just like, wow, Kasumi knows a lot of people. For this Christmas party. I guess it's a big hit. This place is full. It's kind of funny that this is the second episode most people see, and I could kind of understand why if you did see it, you wouldn't have remembered, because so much of it is like, remember that guy? Oh, good times. Hey, let's sing a song. Hey, let's bring everyone here. Oh, let's all remember this song from season 2? Those were great times. and some of that might get lost, which is why you asked me if you need to watch that one as well.
Right.
And I'm like, well, I mean, it's on the same VHS tape if you wanna, but like, it's not necessary for that reason.
Okay, good, because I was like, oh boy, what am I going to do for this part of it where I didn't watch it and I don't remember anything about it except the name of it. But
right, but yeah, so hopefully we've recapped that special, and it should be clear by now. Like, maybe give me some feedback. Pretend you're me and you're inviting someone onto this podcast to talk about Ranma. Do you think that with with enough context, this is a good thing to share with someone? To just dump them in, basically do the equivalent of dumping them in the pool to teach them how to swim.
I feel like this podcast will teach you more about Ranma and whether or not you would enjoy this show, much more than just here's a VHS of a cup of like desperately seeking shampoo, because that is just like, if you have no idea, this VHS will not help you. It's actually the worst kind of fan service in a way, because it's like, you know, would you be a fan of this show? You'll have no idea, actually. You know, you won't even know what it is you watched or what. If there was a part 1 you were supposed to see, well, not exactly. There was a whole series, you know. So I think, honestly, this is a really good podcast if you were to say, hey, you know what? I'm interested in Ranma Half. Tell me more. Or if you found a time machine and saw yourself going to Blockbuster and said, and you could say, wait, don't just rent this. Listen to this this podcast where people talk about what you're about to watch, and then you'll understand what's going on.
And then you have to explain to your younger self what a podcast is. And they'll be like, really? Do they not have real jobs in the future?
And then you'll probably have to be like, listen, you should probably try and stop 9/11, I guess. And you're like, what's that? And you're like, oh, shit, I have to explain all this. You know what? Forget it. Just to, like, listen to the podcast and you'd be like, 1.5. And we're back at what's a podcast. But, still. Time travel.
There's arguably better things to do with this time machine, but using it for Ranma 1/2, I agree. That is the most important, but there's some close seconds.
There's so much, but for whatever reason here, we've decided to settle on teaching ourselves about Ranma in the past.
You said some interesting things, but one thing I want to make clear, see, you assume that my goal is to get people to like Ranma 1/2.
Mm-hmm.
As if that's why I made this podcast. Let's not be ridiculous here.
Okay.
So, I've said this before. Again, I got a pretty fun podcast. People should listen to it. But I've talked before about how, like, first of all, for some context for you and any new listeners, I got into Ranma 1/2 less than a year ago.
Wow.
I specifically remember it was it's almost a month from now because it was 7/11. And I was like, oh, sweet, I'm never going to forget that date. But like on the 11th, I sat down and I started watching Ranma 1/2 simply because out of curiosity. I just like consuming old media.
Sure.
And then after a while, I learned, oh, okay, so like the manga and the anime were going concurrently. So there's like a lot of filler in the anime that's exclusive to that. And then the anime ended, but the manga continued for like 4 or 5 more years. So regardless of which version you look into, half of it is exclusive to that version. And then I started checking those out. And then I learned about these specials. And then I was like, well, hold on. So I get that these OAVs count as part of the anime. They're listed as the OAVs on all the wikis, etc. because they're literal adaptations. They're just episodes. They're just regular episodes, but the series already ended. So here's just a bonus thing. This is like the Hercules and Xena animated film that they made after the shows ended.
Wait. Well, all right. I don't want to derail it, but that's news. I just learned that right now. So,
Did you not know about Hercules and Xena, the Battle for Mount Olympus, the classic animated film?
No,
released straight to video?
I know a lot about Hercules and Xena, or so I thought, and now I'm hearing wow, okay. That's, wow.
Well, Ranma is basically like Xena in a number of ways. Because it's the show has ended, but we're still gonna make stuff because it's still popular enough that if we just put out a direct-to-video, like, not really a movie, but like it's 2 episodes, so movie length at the time, that's what was usually in a VHS tape, people will still buy it, people will still be into this. But then we get to other specials that were like, well, this isn't an episode, this isn't a traditional episode, this is like, okay, so, like, we made an album with the voice actors singing songs, and just to, like, kind of do this cross-promotional thing, we made, like, a little animated special that's, like, the characters doing, like, an in-character variety show with the little music video performances, and that's cute. And they aired that on TV, and then later put it on a VHS tape that was exclusive to, like, their newsletter.
Wow.
But I guess that doesn't count, because none of the wikis listed as an OAV, despite the fact that it was an original animation video. It was a VHS tape containing original animation. There was no reruns, there was no nothing. They made this special just for VHS tape to be released, but it doesn't count. And like I said, in like 2011 or whatever, or I think 2014 maybe, after 2010, so relatively recently for like an anniversary, they made specials of various Rumiko Takahashi works, and those got released on a DVD together after initially only being available at like a little pop-up museum. And according to Wikipedia, that counts as an OAV. There are specials that are basically, here are clip shows that we didn't air on TV. At least that's what it feels like, because it's just a clip show. But it's just, hey, you're signed up for our newsletter, we'll send you a VHS tape of this exclusive episode. And that's it. And that doesn't count. According to Wikipedia, fans don't count those. So, what even is an OAV? What counts as the special? What counts as being part of the show or not? I'm not entirely sure, but basically, after the show has ended, they continued making more stuff. That's what matters. And that's why when I started last year, I'm like, there's a lot. I may as well commit. So, I've consumed every piece of official Ranma media out there possible, including some stuff that was not translated into English. I had to do the classic of using my phone to Google Translate full-length RPGs, line by line. I'm one of those people now. And I'm trying to remember the statistic. I know it's 407 chapters, 161 episodes. I think I settled on like 16 OAVs and specials. It's hard to tell what counts or what doesn't. 3 movies, 14 video games, and at least 4 albums worth of singles and various things released alongside the series. That's a lot of stuff. And now that I've consumed it all, I am the definitive Ranma expert. And I can safely say that Ranma is a perfectly acceptable series. It's fine. It's all right. It's easy to assume if I'm making a podcast about this that I must really care about it. And in a way I do, because doing this podcast has taught me all kinds of history and stuff that I've had to do for research sake. And I just find that stuff fun. Sure. But the most important thing is I would find that fun for a lot of things. I just like digging into stuff. And Ranma just happened to be what I chose. It was literally like a coin flip between that and like Urusei Yatsura, which is the other Rumiko Takahashi series that went on for like 200 episodes and was also big and influential for its time. But yeah, my goal isn't to be like, this show is great, you guys should check it out. Because, as I just listed, there's a lot of it. I do not expect anyone to touch any amount of what I just described. That's a lot of episodes. That's a lot of chapters to read. There isn't a single thing there that I would be like, oh, at least check this out. Because, like, no, none of it is guaranteed to be worth your time.
Right.
But just the act of engaging with this series, and even if it's just one part of it, that could just bring on interesting discussions. And so when I thought of you and what I would talk to you about, this is why I thought of this episode. Because I figured, well, even if you never saw anything involving Ranma, there would at least be something to talk about regarding VHS tapes and old anime and what kind of weird things you found at Blockbuster. Which OAVs did you watch? Did you see Vampire Hunter D? What else? Maybe remember that scene with the, And
yeah.
In that context, I felt that was the best thing for you directly, and for most people my age or older, to just be like, well, here's what I think would be an interesting discussion, specifically so that I can say that, hey, remember when you were 13 and you were going to Blockbuster and there was the little Japanimation section? You were like 5 feet away from this. This could have been your exposure to everything. How do you feel about that? And in that context, I hope that that's a good first impression in that context.
Mm-hmm. Of anime or Ranma, because I feel like either way, it's like it's an okay, it's all right.
Yeah, the episode itself is it's not even a particularly good episode. Again, Ranma's kind of a jerk in this one. You don't even know why these girls care about him. The episode itself isn't what matters, but the discussion of, yeah, by the way, most people who discovered Ranma in the 90s discovered it through this. this was the first impression. You are getting the accurate experience that 13-year-olds all over the country got. Imagine you were a 13-year-old seeing this. How would you have reacted? Because that's the most common experience. And we can talk about that because it's so different to how people would discover Ranma now.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, that's the thing, because it was like, I can't imagine anyone would be picking this up like randomly. Like you don't know anything about Ranma, because I saw the thing in Nintendo Power, so I knew there was a video game, and it was like, okay, this seems a little familiar, because like I don't think you're the kind of person who would pick up like an anime just like in a Blockbuster or a Tower Records or whatever in the 90s would be like, oh, Desperately Seeking Shampoo. That must be like the movie with Patricia Arquette, Desperately Seeking Susan, that I also enjoy at this age, so I might as well see. And you would probably be even more disappointed because it's not... Actually, I haven't seen Desperately Seeking Susan, but I'm assuming it's not. It'd be funny if actually it were shot for shot exactly like this episode of Ranma Half, but with Patricia Arquette as Shampoo. But it's probably not like that. So I feel like, I don't know, it's a very like odd introduction. Like after the fact, I wasn't interested to see more Ranma. Like I felt like I didn't have enough about it, and there was no recourse for me. You know what I mean? Like you can't go to the library and find Ranma Half in the Dewey Decimal System, or you couldn't back when I was younger. And believe me, I tried.
Yeah. And if you were, there's not a lot available, because again, this was the first thing they localized.
Like, yeah, the internet was like super young then, where like you could go on like a Prodigy bulletin board, a BBS thing, and like, like, I don't know, find some like weirdo like thing in like this gray and white odd font, like text, and like just talk to people who had no idea who they were, what they were talking about. And it was just, it would never occur to you, like, people here might know what the hell Japanimation is or whatever, or anime, which, like, I remember this when there was a TV guide talking about it, and they had in parentheses, pronounced anime, like ANNIMAY, because, like, back then, too, a lot of people were, like, already, I guess they were, like, almost proto-weeaboo in a way, where they were, like, really confident that they knew about Japanese things in the United States, and they would get things wrong, and, like, I had a Nintendo Power counselor once, like, they had a hotline to call. I asked him for help on Ninja Gaiden, and he was, like, told, like, 8-year-old me, like, well, in Ninja Gaiden, and he, like, said it like that, like, kind of dismissively, and it's, like, A, I'm 8, and B, I remember this so distinctly, and that's not really how you do that. Like, Gaiden is a perfectly fine, way to do it. Take that, whoever the hell you were, but, but, like, yeah, and I remember that, too. It was just sort of like that, pronounced anime, and now I know, I was like, it's not pronounced like that. Like, why were they so confident that they wrote that down? Like, they didn't know anyone to ask, but it's like, back then you kind of didn't. It was all just, like, bluster and pretending you knew. So...
Yeah, which ultimately is why things like this were discovered, because you're like, well, why would you pick this? But, like, why would you pick anything on that shelf? Like you said, you picked, like, video game stuff, but how many of those were there? You found the Fatal Fury OAV. They might have had the Street Fighter one. What else is there?
Yep. Yeah.
Exactly. What else is there? Almost everything else on this shelf is something you've never heard of. You're going to do what everyone does. You're going to look at the covers, which, hold on. I pulled up the cover for this VHS tape. First thing that I noticed, Ukyo is featured way more prominently in this than I would have expected for someone that's in the episode for like 5 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, I'm like, this looks like an anime.
Yeah,
you could pick anything on this shelf at random. Who knows?
Yeah, it's absolutely, yeah. And sometimes too with Blockbuster, they didn't even have they had these, but then it says subtitled with an exclamation point in the lower right on this one I found, but this is different. This is a collector's edition. So let me see where. Gosh. Oh yeah, I see it now. Yeah, there's Uki. Okay, I got it. Yep, English dub, Japanese animation, Nintendo Christmas Scramble. Yep. Wow, $10 or best offer. Well, that's the thing too. Like even like Vampire Hunter D, it's like you're just guessing because it's like, okay, I guess a vampire hunter thing could be cool. Like, I'm not going to be like, oh, wait a minute, D. I know D, and that's a particularly good vampire hunter, It was all guesswork. And like I said, it was like, my introduction was literally like this weirdo, like, recording off of something my friend had just written Akira, and, it's like, what the heck? And it was like this, like, it was like just this weird, mysterious thing that, like, it was like these cartoons and they're violent and there's like sex in them kind of, or at least nudity. And there's more of them and some of them are really odd. And what the hell? There's like a whole like hentai section in a music store, and like, you didn't even know what that was, but you certainly couldn't like ask or buy it or anything. So that was like a mystery to me, until the internet became a thing. But, like, it's wild. It was just like this weird world where you just pick things and hope for the best, and maybe you found something that was like looked really cool and maybe it didn't. Like, I like randomly like kind of gotten like Ninja Scroll, which was also hyper violent, and Ghost in the Shell, which was pretty violent but like really cool. I mean the movie, not the, I know there was like a series or whatever standalone, but I never watched that. But like
that came out in like the 2000s. That may as well not exist for this.
Oh, okay.
Conversation.
Oh, the series, right? Yeah. The movie was earlier, right? I'm not misremembering.
The movie, yeah, I think that was mid to late 80s. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but it was just like, that kind of thing where it was like you were just
I
sort
was
of
way
like
off. 95.
95. So I would have.
I haven't actually seen it, by the way.
17. Which one?
Just so that no one thinks that I'm bad at guessing. Okay. Yeah, Ghost in the Shell.
It's I like it. I think if you like sort of like Blade Runner-y cyberpunk in a way, that kind of thing. It's cool. That's kind of my jam. So,
excuse you. I've watched every single Ranma 1/2 episode. I don't think I need you to explain to me what Ghost in the Shell is.
Yeah. I've watched all of one, so yeah. But it was like a total dice roll. It was just sort of like, this is a thing that might be cool or might not, and or this guy's got a sword, or there's a Final Fantasy one, and that one I feel like was that one is confusing too.
And chances are, like, you're not just gonna go to Blockbuster the one time and then watch one anime and that's it. I mean, you might. But like, chances are most people, they're gonna watch 1 or 2 episodes of a dozen things. And that's why, like, no matter who I'm talking to, if you're from that era, you've at least heard names like Vampire Hunter D. You at least heard of all these other things that, like, you've heard of Ninja Scroll. Everyone has, who is familiar with things of that era. Those are the things that were in every Blockbuster. And when you only have one shelf to pick from, you're not just gonna you're not gonna watch Desperately Seeking Shampoo and just be like, well, nothing's gonna top that. I don't even know why I'm gonna bother with the rest of this shelf.
I've reached the pinnacle of anime. I'd better stop. I've seen everything Japan has to offer.
So, like, definitely, like, there are so many people I know of who like, started off just keeping track of everything. It was so much easier to just be familiar with, like, every popular series to come out and check them out. And nowadays, it's like, not only is there so much stuff, but there's, like, 8 new shows coming out each season. And, like, now we got Netflix. We're like, hey, everyone's saying go check out Dan Da Dan. And I'm like, okay, but are those people telling me to check it out because it's cool now? Or because I would have thought it was really cool when I was 15? Because that's a very big distinction. Because there's so many things. And that's ultimately the purpose of this podcast. Which is, there's only so much time in the world. I don't expect anyone to do what I did with any series, let alone Ranma. But there's so much there. It's so fun to dig into the crevices and find all these obscure things. In this episode, we talk about one of the least obscure things in Ranma history. This is the thing that most people were introduced to at the time, but also anyone younger than 30 would probably have never had that experience, and they grew up in a world where you maybe heard of Ranma and maybe found an archive of those old scanlations from the 90s and maybe saw some episodes and tried to binge them and then fell off around season 3 or 4. Who knows? But it's all available now, and it's such a different experience that for anyone younger than that cutoff, then this may as well be one random episode out of like 200. It's just one little tiny piece of this giant puzzle, but knowing this extra context of like what this VHS tape meant for this era, what it represented, that's context that you can only find by digging into it and talking about it. And this is why I don't want, like, I never wanted this podcast to just be, let's talk about this next episode. Hey, we watched like the next 3 episodes, let's recap those. I think that's boring. I want to have like a discussion about just the media and all these things. And like, I love to encourage people to do this, but for any series, just dig into it. Don't just like watch a show from start to finish and binge it. Actually look it up. You didn't know about Hercules and Xena, so clearly you're not as big of a Xena fan as I thought you were.
That's fair.
But you would have known if you decided to dig in and do your research. And that's the fun part for me.
I take that criticism to heart, but yeah, absolutely agree.
Right, so hopefully that's a good selling point for, well, if anyone's interested in Ranma. This episode is maybe not the best, but it got me to fully translate Game Boy RPGs with my phone. So clearly there's something there, but I'm not here to pitch you the whole series. I'm here to pitch you the idea of, well, there's more to a show than just the episodes you see on Crunchyroll. This is why I got so excited to see an actual upload of the VHS tape. I'm like, yes, I have seen all these commercials before, but just confirming, like, seeing what would have happened if I put it in a VHS tape and hit play. This is exciting, and you never know if I might run into something new. I love stuff like that, and I definitely want people to do that. I want discussions. I don't want to just discuss Ranma on this podcast. I want to hear stories about people going to Blockbuster and renting the Fatal Fury film and stuff like that. I think that's arguably way more important than anything Ranma does. But also, given the research I've done, I've also discovered Ranma's done a lot of stuff. But yeah, that's that, I suppose. That was Desperately Seeking Shampoo. So I guess again, yeah, with that context, what do you feel? How do you feel overall now that we've sat down and did a whole podcast thing? Are you any less confused than you were when I first messaged you for this?
You know, I think I've grown to learn more about Ranma, you know, in general. But in all seriousness, like, yeah, I think even after watching it and even after Googling a little, it's like, it's a really, again, this was like, I'm almost curious to just know, like, what the thinking was in the sense. Was it like, we can't get another, you know, like, tape, like, localized or subbed or whatever here, so Desperately Seeking Shampoo it is, you know, or the Reversal Approach or whatever. Because it's like, I can't imagine anyone at Viz or whoever thought, like, people are going to, like, understand and fall in love with this series. It's just, like, because it throws so much at you, you know, it's so confusing. The main story isn't even totally clear. And then, but, like, now, after having talked about it and everything, it's funny to know that, like, it wasn't so random that I happened on this particular episode of it. And we had, you know, we had this lucky coincidence in a way, because I guess, like, a lot of people had that experience, but it's very interesting to know you were part of anime history in some small way, you know, not me specifically, but, you know, people who discovered this.
Yeah, but also you, everyone, again, you discovered like some of the most important anime things. You invented. You're the father of isekai animes, from what I
broke
hear.
up a little on Discord there, but I think you said I invented Akira, which is true. So you're welcome. Or actually,
No, I said isekai series, but you know what? Thank you, Discord. That helps.
Right. I think if you put the
Same
reversal
thing.
brooch on isekai, you get Akira, right? So in much the same way you get arid nuts out of
True,
Tsundere,
true,
right?
maybe.
So yeah. No, yeah, absolutely. I had another thought following that, but it left my stupid head. But yeah, it's neat. It's neat, like, kind of going back and remembering, like, finding all this stuff. Oh yeah, and I appreciate the fact that Ranma, like, apparently ended, and I guess has an ending and a resolution. So in that way, we could say Ranma is head and shoulders above Berserk, right? You just completely better.
Listen. I said no. Listen, hold on. I said it ended. I never said anything about a resolution.
Though. And the mangaka is still alive, right? So 2-0, yeah. I mean,
yeah.
No, but
okay, but yeah, I get the joke you're trying to make here. I'm just trying to say, no, listen, let's not get people's hopes up for this series. It's kind of infamous. Like, the final episode of the anime is Ranma meeting his mom for the first time. It's her introduction, and she goes on to be a recurring character in the manga. But the final episode of the anime is like, here's this new character. It's Ranma's mom. And then it ends.
but yeah.
And then eventually the actual manga ending, I've said before, you could tack that ending onto any storyline. Any ending could have just as... This story could have just as easily ended with Ranma and Akane admitting their feelings for each other and hooking up, and then you get the ending.
Right.
It would have been a bit weird, because that's not what the episode was about, but it could have happened. You could have tacked that ending anywhere. So, the Ranma series' like conclusive state is not quite its selling point.
So you're saying that in the final episode, Ranma's in the eclipse, but actually kicks everyone's ass and destroys like all the evil gods and avenges everything, right?
Yeah,
good.
Yeah, and he could have done that at any point.
Yeah.
So it's a little anticlimactic, but it's at least cool that it happens.
Right, exactly.
So, I guess that's all we got to say about there. I said this like once on the podcast, and then I keep forgetting. I did make an email for this podcast. So I guess if any new listeners are interested in just, if you want to learn more, but you're too lazy to learn it yourself, then feel free to tune in like 2 months so that I can answer that question for you. If you want to write into ranmapodcast@gmail.com, which I keep forgetting to mention that, but now that I'm bringing it up, fun fact, through a series of weird anomalies with Google that I cannot fully explain, that Gmail got merged with my primary Google account.
Oh dear.
So now, like, everything involving Google says, like, hello, Ranma. I am officially Ranma Podcast to Google. Every time I use Google, there's a little Ranma icon in the corner. And I'm like, well, I can't split the two, because I've already used that email to set everything up with the podcast, and I made the YouTube channel for uploading this on video, and it's tied to my primary account. So it's not like I could just delete it and start over. So I'm just Ranma. Google has forced me to marry myself to the concept of the Ranma 1/2 series, kind of as if, like, by Amazon law, I am bound to it. Ranma has defeated me, and I must now marry the Ranma series. It is my name now. That's how Google knows me. Google understands the Google Amazon law.
Can I ask a question about Ranma? because maybe it'll
Sure.
spark interesting discussion. Maybe it won't, but what determines if you fall into that cursed pond or whatever, like what you transform into?
Okay, so it's not one pond. It's like a valley where there's like 100 ponds, and each one has a separate transformation.
Okay, so it's not like a personal thing. It's that like Ranma fell in one and his father fell in another, and etc.
Yeah, Rama fell in the spring of drowned girl, and his dad fell in the spring of drowned panda. Those are two separate
did hear that
ponds.
somewhere actually when you mentioned
And it's a complete absurdity. I've occasionally seen like threads on like Reddit or Twitter or something, just like fans talking about like, well, if you were at the springs, what would you do? And I'm like, that question is ignoring the fact that Ranma is a cartoon series, and the idea that you could choose which pond you fall into is laughable. If you go to Jusenkyo for a specific transformation, you're only guaranteeing that you're gonna slip on a banana peel and fall in like the spring of drowned sloth or something absurd like that.
Right.
That's how this works.
Gotcha.
Like you can look at this episode and you can maybe guess that Moose does not want to be a duck. That's just how he ended up.
I see. Interesting. Weird that
That's how those springs work.
Gotcha. Wouldn't expect a duck to drown, but wow.
There's a lot of things you wouldn't expect to drown. There's a sprig of drowned octopus.
Jeez.
But yeah, that's that whole ordeal with if anyone wants to write into that email, just send in questions. I will maybe read them if I get more than 2, which I might not, but I figured that was at least a good segue to explain that this series has literally taken over my life.
Gotcha.
I'm like, it's you know, you can't live without Google. We would like to, but we can't. And so now for the rest of my life, anytime I use Google, it's gonna be right there. It's gonna call me Ranma. That's who I am. So without realizing, I have committed to this series more than I might have thought. But yes, that's that podcast. So hey, you're just some guy, but I don't know. Do you have anything to promote? Where can people find you, good sir?
My gosh. Twitch.tv/Slowbeef. I'm Slowbeef on YouTube. I'm Slowbeef on a lot of things, and I'm on Blue Sky a lot. I don't know when this is airing, but you know, I'm taking my daughter to a video game convention next week. I guess if you follow me on all those places, I'll let you know how it went. And yeah, so that's where.
It's okay. As evidenced by the fact that I messaged you, I am maybe perhaps a bit desperate to get more people on board to talk about this. So this episode might go up sooner than most recordings I do. The time between recording and upload might be a bit smaller than usual, but there might be some people
all right,
who are going to that same convention. I don't know.
Well, maybe if you're at too many games, you can say like, "Oh, Slowbeef, you were on the Ranma Half podcast." Yeah, exactly. Which was titled.
Yeah,
it's titled.
Which is titled the name that you're about to say, right?
The Slowbeef Show, exactly. Also, Ranma Half and somebody else.
Yes, don't know what to do. The best SEO I could find. It is definitely not a thing that if you type it in, it will just get you clickbait tutorials on how to make a podcast. It's very clever. It's based off the lyrics to the introduction of the first OP, but the English translation, it's really smart, guys.
I don't think you had to explain any of that. That was just very apparent, but yeah.
Well, maybe not to you because you're an anime expert, but
right.
You know, we've got you probably have some people who will be like, "Whoa, Slowbeef is on Don't Know What to Do. I better check this out." And those people who are Slowbeef fans might not necessarily be as big of an anime fan as my usual listener.
Right. DKWTD. You got exactly. So.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
my trick for looking it up is simply type in Ranma Columbo, because we talk about Columbo in the first episode, and that's what comes up. That's the most likely thing to appear in a Google search. Just put Columbo in whatever Ranma related search you're doing, you'll eventually find it.
Nice.
But yeah, that's that story, and I guess all that's left to do is ask, who is the best girl, Slowbeef?
I think Ranma is in fact the best girl.
You know what? That's a fair answer. Not enough people pick Ranma. The good old Ranma. That's the character that we see nude most often. So what's not to like?
Exactly.
All right, but that's it. Everyone, take care. Enjoy thinking about which cursed pool you might accidentally fall in when you have no control over where you end up.
Well, hopefully maybe it's a drowned girl with big honking bazongas, as they say. But
they do say that.
They do. I was all the time. It's a little weird.
All right, that sounds like a good outro.
It's a good stopping point. Big honking bazongas, the universal podcast ending phrase. But oh boy.
Yeah, thank you for giving me a good episode title for this one, Big Honking Bazongas.